Hello everyone and welcome to this video on the Python programming language. So in this video I will show you how to analyze the sentiment of news headlines about cryptocurrencies using Python. Now by this I just mean that I will show you how to determine if the author's attitude towards crypto is positive, negative, or neutral. And you may say, well, why do I care? Well, you may care because news sentiment can play a big role in the upswing or downswing of an asset like crypto. Now, I'm currently on Google's website called colab.research.google.com, and I'm on it because it makes it really easy to start programming in Python. So all you have to do is go to this website and then log in using your Google account and get started writing your Python code. So to get started writing this code, you're going to want to click on File, then click on New Notebook, where a new tab will open up for you, and then eventually a new cell. And before we begin, if you like the videos on this channel, then be sure to click that subscribe button and that like button. And to be notified about new videos from this channel, hit that bell notification. Okay, so the first thing that I'm going to do in this cell is put in some comments, a description about the program. So I'm just going to put, let's put this program analyzes the sentiment of, or the sentiment about crypto using news headlines and Python. Okay, so let's go ahead and create a new cell by clicking this code button in the top left. And now in this cell, I want to import the libraries that I'm going to use throughout the program. So I'm going to import pandas as PD. Then I'm going to import numpy as np. And from text blob, I'm going to import text blob. And then I'm going to import matplotlib.pyplot as plt, and then I'm going to give the plot a style. So just type plt.style.use, and I'm going to use 538. And then I'm going to run this cell by clicking this button here to the left. And let's see if we have any issues. Okay, so everything looks good. I'm going to create a new cell. And now I'm going to load the data. I'm going to load the data that contains the news for cryptocurrencies. And to do that, I need to use Google's library. So from google.colab, I'm going to import files, and then we'll create a variable. Well, actually, I don't need a variable. I'm just going to type files.upload to upload the file, and let's go ahead and run this. And I'm going to click on choose files, and let's choose cryptocurrency_news.csv, which contains news about cryptocurrencies. So let's go ahead and create a new cell. All right, so we have our file that contains the news headlines, I should say, about cryptocurrencies. And now I want to store the data. So we're going to store the data. So I'm going to create a variable called df and set it equal to pd.read_csv, and then input the name of the file that was just uploaded. So I'm just going to come here, highlight this, and copy it using Control C, and then come down here and paste it using Control V. And then I want to show the data. So I'm just going to type df here. So let's go ahead and run this and take a look at the data. So we can see that the data contains date. It contains a link to the article, the headline of the article, and a short description. All right, and then we have our indices here. They're all integer values, but I want to make those the dates. And we can also see that we have 130 rows of data, and of course those 4 columns that I just named out. So let's go ahead and give this data some indices, or let's set the date as the index because it already has indices, but they're all integer values. So we're going to, again, set the date as the index. So just type df and set it equal to df.set_index, and then input pd.datetime index, and we're going to input the date. So df date dot values, and I'm going to put a comment here just saying that I'm setting the date as the index. All right, so let's go ahead and run this again, and now we can see that the indices are the are the date values. Okay, so let's go ahead and create a new cell. And the first thing that I'm going to do is create a function to get the polarity. So I'm going to create a function to get the polarity. So this will just be a negative or positive value. So it's going to be either -1. I'm sorry, it's going to be in a range from -1 to 1. Okay, so let's go ahead and create that function. I'm going to call it get polarity, and it's going to take in some text. Okay, and then we're going to return text blob dot. We're going to input the text here. I'm sorry, text blob. Let me bring that down a little bit. Text blob text dot sentiment dot polarity. Okay, and I think that looks good. And then I'm going to add a new column to our current data set. So here we're just going to create one new column. I'm going to call it polarity. So just type df and then put in polarity here. And we're going to set that equal to df headline dot apply, and we're going to apply that function that we just created called get polarity. And then I want to show the data set with the new column. So just type df. Actually, I'll only show a few values. I do df.head, and we'll do 5 rows of data. And let's go ahead and run this. Okay, so now we get back our 5 rows of data. And if I look over here, we can see the polarity column, and we can see those values ranging from -1 to 1. Okay, so this means that, well, if we look here at this value here in the polarity for row 1, we can see that it's all zeros. So this tells me that this is a neutral headline about cryptocurrencies. And then the one right below it is positive, it's greater than 0. So this tells me that that news headline has a positive sentiment. And then if we look here on the, let's see, 1, 2, 3, on the 4th row, we can see that this is a negative value. So this tells me that this news headline was negative towards cryptocurrencies. Okay, and I think we want to actually show that. So let's go ahead and create a new cell. And now in this cell, I'm going to create a function to compute negative, neutral, and positive sentiments. Okay, so I'm just going to call this get sentiment, and it's going to take in some score. All right, now if the score is less than 0, then it's going to return negative. And else if the score is 0, then I will return neutral. Else it's neither, the score is neither less than 0 nor is it equal to 0, so it's greater than 0, so I will return positive. Okay, and then I will, let's see, I will create a new column. So I'm going to create a new column to store the sentiment. So let's go ahead and create that column. I will call it sentiment, and I will set it equal to df polarity dot apply. So I'm going to apply that function to our polarity scores. So that's get sentiment, and then I want to show the data. So I'm just going to type df.head, and we're going to show the first 5 rows of data. And all right, let's go ahead and run this. Okay, so let's look at the sentiment column, and now we can see in a string, or as a string, we can see the sentiment now is neutral for that first row where the value is 0. We can see it's positive for this next row, just like I said earlier, and then negative for this row here. All right, so it makes it a lot easier to see without us having to really think about it. And let's go ahead and create a new cell. And now in this cell, I plan on plotting and visualizing the sentiment counts. So here we're going to plot and visualize the sentiment count. So just, let's see, we can just type df sentiment, and I think, is it a capital S? I think I made it a capital S, right? Yep. So it needs to be a capital S here. So sentiment dot value underscore counts dot plot, and we're going to tell it to plot a bar chart. Okay, so that looks good, and I just type plt dot show, and let's run this. Okay, so now we get this nice chart, and I definitely want to add a few things. So I'm going to add a title, so just type plt dot title. I'm going to put sentiment analysis, and then I want to give the x-axis and the y-axis a label. So I'm going to type plt.x label, and it's going to be, or the x-axis label will be sentiments, and the y-axis plt.y label will be the counts. All right, so our x-axis is the sentiments and our y-axis is the counts. So let's go ahead and run this, or are the counts. All right, so there we go. So we can see the counts here on the y-axis now, and we can see our sentiments on the x-axis, and we can see our nice title here. All right, so let's go ahead and create a new cell. And now that we can see that the majority of the news headlines were neutral, and the next majority were positive, and there weren't that many negative attitudes towards cryptocurrencies in these news headlines. Now I want to visually show the sum of the polarity for each date. Okay, so again, it's pretty interesting that for cryptocurrencies, the news wasn't that negative. There wasn't that many negative news headlines. All right, so let's go ahead and continue. So now again, I want to get, and, or not get, I want to plot the sum of the polarity for each date. Okay, so to do this, just type plt.figure, and let's give our figure a figure size. So I'm just going to type fig size, and I'm going to set it equal to 12.33 by 4.5. And I'm going to give it a title, plt.title, and I will call this sentiment sum over time. And I actually need to get that sum, right? So let's go ahead and get that sum here. So polarity will be equal to df dot group by, and I'm going to group by the date, and I want the sum. So I'm going to put dot sum, and I want the sum of the polarity. Okay, and then I'm going to plot this. So I'm just going to type plt dot plot, and we're going to plot the polarity dot index, and we're going to plot polarity. All right, so let's give this a run. Okay, so it looks like I messed up somewhere here. Let's see, df dot group by, and I'm going to group by the date, which should be okay. And I see where the problem is. So after I group by, I need the right parentheses there and not here. So let's go ahead and run this again. Okay, and now we have our nice plot. Okay, so this is the sentiment sum over time, right? But this can be very misleading. So let's actually take a look at polarity. So here we're going to um, show the sum of the polarity for each date. So I'm just going to type polarity here and let's run this. Okay, so now we can see those values that we graphed up here. And again, it could be misleading because remember the polarity can only be values between -1 and 1. So we have a value of 6 here, right? So we can take the average and compute the sentiment over this time period. Also, we can see that the news headlines are from the dates April 1st to April 9th, 2021. Okay. All right, so let's go ahead and create a new cell. And now I want to show the average. I want to show the average sentiment for each day. So to do that, I will first need to get a count of the articles. So let's go ahead and create a new cell. I'm going to bring this up. And here I'm going to get the count of each article per date. All right, so let's create a variable called polarity underscore count and set it equal to df dot group by. And I'm going to group by the date. I'm going to put dot count, and I want the polarity. Okay, so let's go ahead and copy this by highlighting it and then using Control C, come down here and pasting it using Control V to show the data. All right, so there we go. We can see now that there were a lot more articles in this data set for April 9th, 2021 than there was for pretty much any other date. All right, and then we can see there were 29 articles for this date here and 5 articles for this date here and so on and so forth. You can see that for all of these different dates. So now we have the count. Let's go ahead and compute the average sentiment. So to do that, we just take the polarity, which we computed up here and where we got the sum, right? So we're going to take that sum called polarity and we're going to divide it by polarity underscore count. All right, and then this should do it. So let's run this. And now we can see the average sentiment. Okay. So let's go ahead and graph this as well so we can see the sentiment over time, the average sentiment over time for each day. All right, so I'm going to create a new cell. And then I'm just going to type plot the average sentiment over time. So let's type plt dot figure and then give the figure a figure size. So I'm going to set the figure size equal to 12.33 by 4.5. And then I'm just going to type plt dot plot. And I'm going to plot that average. So I'm actually going to set this equal to some value. Let's make it, or let's call it polarity underscore average. Okay, so I'm going to highlight that, copy it, and then paste it here. So let's run that. Okay, so everything looks good. And I'm going to use that value now. So here I'm going to put in polarity dot or polarity underscore average dot index, and then polarity underscore average. And let's run this. Okay, so let's see what the problem is. Polarity, I put AVD instead of AVG, and let's run that one more time. Okay, so now we can see the sentiment average over time. And I'm going to add a title. Let's put sentiment average over time. Okay. So what's interesting here is we can see that on April 1st, the news sentiment was pretty negative within this data set. Then on the 2nd, the news sentiment was the highest out of all of this data. And then it dropped back down on the 3rd day. And from the 3rd day to the 9th day, it looks like the sentiment started rising in the positive direction. So maybe cryptocurrencies started making people more money. Who knows? I don't know. Anyways, that's the end of the video. Hopefully I didn't mess up any of the code. If I did, please let me know. And if you would like to start an investment portfolio of your own, then by clicking the link below, you can get 2 free stocks valued up to $1,850 on Webull when you deposit $100 or more on the platform immediately after signing up as a new user. It's basically free money that you can use and not worry about losing. Thanks for watching, and thank you to the supporters supporting this channel on patreon.com. If you would like to become a supporter on patreon.com, I will leave a link in the description below for that as well. Again, thanks for watching, and I hope you all have a great day, and I will see you in the next video.